Hey, yo, what up? This is Take Aim. I'm Ace. This is Kara. And we're talking about international teams today.
We'll be discussing all the powerhouse teams that would normally qualify for the World Cup but failed to, and what they could have done differently. Starting with Netherlands, we have a formation that manager Advocat was going with at 4-3-3. Something I don't ultimately disagree with, but maybe somewhat the choice of players in the lineup. Normally he would start Ryan Babel on the left, a Liverpool reject, somebody who hasn't been really producing numbers. I'm sure you know Ryan Babel from Premier League days. He plays for Besiktas now. He is also a starter for them, so I think that's why they kind of gave him the benefit of the doubt of putting him in the line, and maybe he would offer something. But I feel like the man is past his prime, and his numbers are not as good as Depay. A player who has 6 goals in 11 appearances for Olympique Lyonnais. And I think people are neglecting these two and what they can offer for the national team. I'm pointing to Bas Dost here. Normally been a backup striker over the years, but now with Netherlands lacking major attacking depth from the old generation that's passed, Van Persie, Robben, Sneijder, Van Nistelrooy. Defensive-wise too, Bronkhorst, Van Bommel. Netherlands are the best team to have never won the World Cup, and the legacy that they carry have left holes unreplaced by the current generation. They have a lot of good youth across the Dutch league, the Eredivisie, and they farm great players. A lot of them, their problem ultimately is that they play for so many different clubs around the world, and not so much like together in a domestic league that you can find everywhere, like from Italy to Premier League to so on and so forth, Portugal right here, France. They're all great world-class players in my opinion, and this is kind of like the lineup I would have gone with. Now that Robben's missing, Ben Guis would fill here, and he's a good assister for a big, tall, hold-up player like Bas Dost, who has 9 goals for Sporting and 11 appearances.
And they have someone that can finish beside them too, right?
Yes, we all know Memphis Depay. I know we remember the United days and what he couldn't deliver, but let's not sleep on him because this guy has potential unfulfilled.
He still has time.
He has time too. He's still young. Wijnaldum, it's a no-brainer. What he's been doing for stability for Liverpool should carry on to here. Strootman, not so impressed with what he did on France, but also someone we shouldn't neglect because what he does for Roma, it's something that he could offer the same for Netherlands to provide long passes, vision, assisting to the attackers going forward that don't have much service. I think Strootman belongs in the starting lineup as well as Van Ginkel, who has been a forgotten player over the years since he left Chelsea. Another player, it seems like Netherlands have this same trend where forgotten players are starting to get their numbers again, and they are. Like he's actually scoring in the Dutch league again. Blind, even though originally a defensive mid, has been playing left back for United, so he has that spot for himself. But they have been using him where Wijnaldum is, and I think Netherlands have this problem where they're lacking fullback quality besides the attack. They're getting players like Fosu Mensah, Nathan Ake, and Blind, who are all defensive mids, but they play fullback.
Exactly.
So there's a problem here. Like it's not their original respective positions, and so I feel like Blind should stay at left back. Virgil, we all know about the commotion he started over the transfer rumor windows as of recent, links with Liverpool and Chelsea. Free kick specialist, easily deserves a starting line choice here next to Rekic from Habsburg. And I think with this team, there's not too much width, but there's a lot of good players that are stable amongst the central positions. So, and there's a lot of depth too. If Rekic is not performing, you have Hoet, you have De Ligt, the 18-year-old prospective center back prodigy. And then in the midfield we have Van de Beek, who's also a 20-year-old young player who's showing some promise. Janma, I put in the right back because they haven't really solidified that position for one person. He played very well in the World Cup that just passed, against Spain especially. I remember that opening game. I think when it comes to tournaments like these, he can stand out for the national team, and even though sometimes we haven't seen it for club, I would like to give him another chance and see what he can do in the right back position.
Alright, so going forward, we'll move on to Team Chile. We suggested them playing a 4-3-1-2 with Alexis at point with Vargas. I feel like one of the main issues with Alexis is his mental state because of all the issues that are happening in London with Arsenal, and also his contract situation could possibly be affecting the way he played in the qualifiers.
It's definitely a factor. It's a good thing to bring up because he wanted to leave Arsenal. even though he's kind of worked with it and he is still producing with the club, what's going on with him and his relationship with Wenger could obviously carry on to what's going on with the national team because he's playing. You know, it's a mental game too. It affects the players.
On his shoulders.
Yeah, he is the heart and soul of the national team. He's the star player, alongside with Vargas, who chemistry-wise they're phenomenal. There's a reason why they always go with Alexis, Vargas, Valdivia, Vidal, and Bravo. Top foreign players in top leagues around the world. Vargas in particular plays well for his national team. Can't really justify for club. He's one of those odd few players that plays better for the national team. But his partnership with Alexis, it's a little surprising that a lot could be delivered. And it's not even too much that Valdivia here at the cam position is to blame. He is 34, but he's still assisting them quite well there in that position, even though he's overripe. And I know you made a statement about Vidal.
Yeah, I feel like maybe not within the next few years, but they should start planning to find someone to take over his position. Because he hasn't started declining yet, but eventually he will start declining, right? And he is a key player to this team's success.
And it's no surprise, with what, the Copa America recently, right? They won it. With me, I feel like the problem with this team and what they could have done differently is the coach did go with this exact lineup, but I feel like he was not the ideal manager for the team. They actually sacked him last month, right away after they didn't qualify. I don't think he guided them very well. Especially of a team with these tight-knit players that have seen success before. So what's the problem? I know anywhere between here and the goalie, names such as Mena, Jara, Hernandez Silva, they're in different clubs around the world, Celta de Vigo, Besiktas, Colo Colo, Universidad. They might not be top players, but they do justify being in this lineup. I don't consider them much of an anchor, but I would like to see more development and depth in those positions around this area of the field. And it's just a shocker for me because they've been so good in recent years, but we can only hope that with their new manager they'll be guided properly.
Hopefully, yeah. It is time for a change with this team a bit, especially defensive wise. But yeah, to conclude with what we're seeing about Chile is that they can keep the top half, but they need to develop more defensively to be improving for the next international competitions.
And these guys have experience with the national team. I just feel like there needs to be more quality to compromise what these guys have to offer up here. Isla in particular, we saw him at Juventus. He played relatively well, but he's kind of shot back down again. Overall, there needs to be better defense.
Yeah. All right, so the next team we'll move on to is Team USA. I'll let Carl take over from here.
A big upset. They haven't failed to qualify since 1986 was the last time that happened. I went with a 4-2-3-1 with this one, something that they do quite often, but I've decided to change a few players in the line, and this is what I think we prefer. Bradley and Altidore, records being broken for TFC. No question do they not deserve a start in this lineup. Same with Dax McCarty, who's done very well with Schweinsteiger in Chicago Fire. Bobby Wood in Germany. Christian Pulisic, the A-game teenager who's arguably the best player, should sit in the cam. And on the left wing, more than once nominated Best USA Player of the Year, Fabian Johnson, who's normally a left back but can really help assist here, produce some numbers for the team. Behind him is DeAndre Yedlin, who hasn't been getting regular starts for Newcastle, but has been prospected to be a better player if he gets his time on the team. And I think as a left back, he slots in right here naturally. He's been playing right, but I feel the person who deserves the right spot is Zusi. Right beside Bessler, these two play for Sporting Kansas, and together they have produced the title of Best Defense in MLS this year. And they have the least amount of goals against, and I think they work very well together here, tethered in the back, to make Brad Guzan's job any easier, as well as Jeff Cameron from Stoke. Very solid lineup. The issue with the USA is not so much their players, believe it or not. It's more so their manager, Bruce Arena, who's more so a motivator rather than a technical type of manager who could read the fine print of the game and really analyze particular things. Now, you can make the argument that, and I've heard this before, some pundits have said that a lot of these USA players, in order to up their A game, they should go to Europe. And a lot of them have, and I do agree with that statement to an extent, because it's not like some of these players haven't played in Europe and they aren't currently in Europe, but they're not finding regular playing time.
Yeah.
And what earns you the lineup call for being in the starting lineup is not only what you offer and what you produce, but if you're playing regularly. Like, if you're a good player and you're not starting normally for your club, chances are you're not going to start for your national teams.
So last but not least, we'll be talking about Italy.
Huge.
So, yeah.
Yeah, they're... what a big surprise upset. One of the most notorious teams in this competition, who have won it several times, and the last time they failed to qualify was 1958. That's almost 60 years ago, and it's shocking for everybody to see, and they're asking why. And the last few years, like Netherlands, they carried a legacy with their players that there was holes left unfilled. Pirlo being called up until 36, he was in the midfield. And he's such a talented midfielder. It's like, who can we fill out a player like that? We got to keep calling him until he's not capable of playing. And then lacking attackers from like previous years, like Del Piero, Totti, Inzaghi. Like, they still have immense quality with the players they have to be able to make it through. I don't even think it's so much of a managerial issue. Like, he's choosing the right formation and lineup. They did go to 4 in the back for a bit before, and that's when things were kind of failing. But rightfully, I think it should be 3 in the back. It's something they got used to with Juventus' back line setup. But now that Buffon's out of the picture, and hopefully Barzagli too, who needs to retire as well, we're going to take in consideration that this new back line is going to look like Bonucci, Chiellini, and Romagnoli from AC Milan. Other players that can take the third center-back role that Barzagli will leave empty is Rugani and Astori. And here at net, it's obviously Mattia Perin from Genoa. Now, the midfield is like a huge emphasis of Italy. Like, they're known for this. Candreva and Parolo, normally in the midfield here, they would start because they have a lot of experience, a lot of appearances. And Italy's downfall is a lot of the young players don't get a chance to be called up too many times. And I feel like that will lead to their downfall if they don't give them enough exposure and experience to hold them in games. Exactly. Particularly with Verratti, we all know what he's been capable of with PSG. Yeah. He hasn't been getting called up enough. Only 24 appearances compared to Candreva and Parolo, who are decent midfielders and do justice with their clubs. But I want to think of the new. I want to think of the youth. Jorginho, I mean, he's 26. He's only recently on the uprise, but he's been clinical in any midfield position, very versatile. Florenzi is also versatile too. He's not traditionally on the right side, but I like these guys where they are. Darmian, we know he's been best on the left, United. Florenzi, Roma, like... This has to be the setup in the midfield. And I'll mention an altered lineup afterwards. But going on to our forwards, the ones that can't deliver, there is service. Sometimes it might feel like it's a bit flaky, but Immobile is like the Diego Costa of Italy. Okay. In which they play good for their clubs, but for the national teams, it doesn't seem to deliver. And I think the reason why is because they haven't had too much experience with the national team over the years. These guys were players that boomed from like the 2013 and 14 season onward. What he did with Torino, 22 goals. Atletico Madrid that season with Diego Costa, almost 30. Those were huge players at the time, but when they came to be called up for the national team, the numbers weren't there. I still want to give him the benefit of the doubt because for Lazio right now, he's scoring more than he's appearing. 12 appearances, 14 goals. And Bellotti is scoring in over 50% of games he's appearing. So I still want to keep these two people on, but I'm going to mention another lineup that I think would also work besides 3-5-2.
Agreeing with what you're saying about moving forward and getting younger players in, I agree with that, especially with their defensive line. It's good that they changed the right one. And with Verratti too, with what he's accomplished at PSG, I think it's time for him to take that main role with the Italian team. I know. And play as one of their main center defensive midfielders. But for strikers, I think also El Shaarawy should be given a shot.
So another lineup that should be considered for their next friendly, and I decided to be a bit experimental with this myself, because these guys have been sitting on the bench and we know how good they've been as of late for Juventus and Roma. It's a 3-4-3 false 9, this time with Insigne slotting in, kind of like the false 9 here, pulling back and servicing El Shaarawy and Bernardeschi. Behind him is Jorginho, who's slotting further deep with Verratti, and still the same back line that I'm comfortable with, that I'd like to see it different. Insigne is a player who could really read behind the lines, in between the lines, and I feel like his passing is very crucial. He's very similar to Giovinco. They're both 5'4". They're very technical dribblers. They have a great view of the game of how to not only distribute the ball, score, and position themselves in all the right places in the right times. And we saw clinical goals from both of these guys that I think if they're gunning it down the lines while Insigne's in the middle, they know how to exploit space when it's found, and they know how to capitalize on it and finish.
Yeah.
Do you have input on this?
It is a good lineup.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to be experimental.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they don't have anything to lose at this point, right?
Yeah.
They're transitioning from the old generation to the newer one.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it is a good idea. They have someone sliding in deeper down as a false nine,
Mm-hmm.
with still a solid defensive lineup.
Mm-hmm.
But they have El Shawari, as I mentioned, who can attack for them.
Exactly.
So I am a fan of it.
Like you said, keyword transition. I feel like with these three players, they're so quick that on transition, whether it be on a counter, they'd be quick to really catch the opposition on out of position and score. I feel it's such a deadly lineup. And when I was bringing up Giovinco, referencing him being another potential person in this position before, obviously there's been a lot of criticism with the MLS and moving there to lower competition. And they have been picking him over Giovinco, despite how similar they are. He just has the edge. But when Antonio Conte was coaching the team, he ultimately said, like, he just judged Giovinco despite the numbers that he's bringing, right? You know, the moment you go to a lower competition, like, I'm sorry, like, we have European players that play for top clubs, and, like, we just can't justify bringing someone from the MLS.
Yeah.
I don't think it's good to label him like that. I think at the very least, I'm not saying start Giovinco, but keep him on the bench for him come the 70th, 80th minute as an impact player and also a free kick specialist.
That's true.
Yeah. But for the most part, that's our video. Hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe, yeah.
Comments.
And keep posted for further coverage of Premier League Week 12, right? We're Week 12 now.
Yeah.
And MLS playoffs.
And don't forget to take aim.